And now it's time for the Michelle Dawn Mooney Show.
So you've heard of the saying, the quickest way to a person's heart is through their stomach. Well, my next guest knows all about that because she has taken something that so many of us love, lasagna, and she's added a lot more love to it. She's found a way to not only help people in a time of need, whether it's financial or emotional or anything that is kind of bringing them down, and then also bringing people into the fold who love to give and make a difference. So please welcome my next guest. She is the founder of Lasagna Love, Rhiannon Menn. Hi, Rhiannon.
Hi, how are you?
I am so good. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you are super, super busy. You've got a lot on your plate, pun intended. So let's dive right into it. You have founded this organization called Lasagna Love. And basically, for people who are unfamiliar with it, you are connecting people who are going through something and they just need a little pick-me-up. And food, of course, is such a source of strength and comfort. And you are offering them delicious food and that delicious comfort food. And you're also bringing people into the mix who are able to connect with these people, not only in a small area, but all across the country right now. So tell us how Lasagna Love got started.
Sure. So I like to say that it was a giant accident because genuinely it was. And it's funny, I can't believe 2 years have gone by, or more than 2 years. So this was back in March of 2020, so very beginning of the pandemic. And we were living in San Diego at the time. And very suddenly everything shut down. The parks were closed, the beaches were closed. I had 2 little kids, nowhere to take them. Grocery stores, no one was going to. The streets were just empty. And I felt very helpless. And I was looking for anything that I could do to support my community, but all of the volunteer opportunities had shut down as well. So you couldn't volunteer at a food bank. I couldn't even find a blood drive to donate to. And I felt this pull to do something. And for me, you said in the beginning, food is love for me. The way to your heart is through your stomach. I'm totally all in on that. And so I just started making meals and delivering them to people that I found through Facebook groups. So I would post in these moms groups that I was a part of and just say, hey, if you're struggling, whatever that means for you, like, please, please, please let me bring you dinner for a night. I'll drop it off at your door, contactless. And, it wasn't selfishly, it wasn't just to help them. It made me feel like I had a purpose. And I think naively, I thought, okay, I'll make a few meals. The pandemic will last a few weeks, maybe a month, and then we'll all go back to normal. And clearly that didn't happen. And I started getting messages from people saying, I'm not going to raise my hand for a meal, but I do want to raise my hand to cook. Are there enough families to go around? Like I'm feeling like I need to do something, and this really fits. And so really organically, I just started saying yes, absolutely, and figuring it out. And first it was a few volunteers in San Diego and then other states. And all of a sudden, as you said, I found myself running an organization, or, I'd like to say more of a movement across the country of people who really passionately wanted to connect with somebody in their community during this time. And that desire to connect and to help and to give has sustained, I would say, even though we're sort of emerging from the pandemic, we still have thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers all cooking and delivering meals to people.
It's so wonderful. And I want to dive deeper into exactly how Lasagna Love works. But let me ask you a little bit about your background, because as you said, it kind of happened by accident. So here we are in the pandemic, which threw everybody for a loop in the worst way possible. And a lot of people found themselves forced to reinvent themselves. You were one of those people in a way, because you were just kind of looking for something to do, a way to give of yourself, which turned into a life change, a profession change for you. So can you give us a little background about where you were, where you kind of came from, and, how early on did you see or even feel the seeds planted for Lasagna Love looking back on your life?
So, I wouldn't have said this at the time, but now that I've had time to reflect, I think that the spark for this goes back even to my childhood, where my mom really instilled in me this sense of, giving to others and contributing and being a part of the community. I remember, she and I would bake together to raise money at the local library bake sale. And she would take me to sing at nursing homes. I've been a singer my whole life, and I would go and sing Christmas carols and Hanukkah songs to people who didn't necessarily have a family to celebrate with. And it was a normal part of who I was growing up. And so, I think that was the foundation, that the natural question for me to ask when the pandemic hit was, what can I do? Where is there a gap to fill? Who needs help? And so I think that was, it's just sort of been a part of me. But then there's the sort of more technical side of, running an organization, and like, what does that look like? And I look back at my career, and I think most people have like they go to college, they get a degree, they sort of follow this linear path. And I was all over the place. I was on a political campaign. I did nonprofit consulting. I worked in real estate. I went to business school. I tried a lot of different things that didn't really seem to mesh until Lasagna Love. And now all of a sudden, all of these really like disparate skill sets that seem to have no relationship all fuse really nicely into this organization where, I've managed volunteers. I love data. I've done all the pieces of this. And, I think nobody else would have that background. And it makes me feel like the universe sort of presented me with this opportunity at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. And this was just kind of meant to be. I know maybe that sounds like silly, but I genuinely feel like this was all meant to happen as it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about doing the straight and narrow, go to college and do whatever. And I have friends that they knew exactly what they wanted to do since they were little, and they studied in college, and they're doing that, and they're happy, and they've done that and will do that for the rest of their lives. Then you have people, I think, like you and I have changed, shifted gears here and taken a few other paths and twists and turns. But when you follow your heart, it led you exactly where you were supposed to be. And I think that's such an important lesson for people listening out there, because if you're still in a phase, no matter how old you are, it's never too late to really find your passion. And, I think it's beautiful that you're able to, your profession and your passions have come together, and you're able to do this and help so many people. So let's talk about, you brought up a great point with your mom and how you had this early in your family of helping people, and that was kind of always a part of your life. You have 3 little ones now. So talk to me, if you can, about the impact that they have kind of had with Lasagna Love. I know they're young, but can you give any examples of what they've seen mommy do and how that makes you feel to see that?
I think I didn't realize how important it was for my kids to have the same experience that I had growing up until it happened. And I think especially for my daughter, so she was 3 when the pandemic started. My son was 1 and my other son wasn't born yet. So they were kind of too little to really understand what was going on. Although my 1-year-old did eat his fair share of shredded cheese. But, my 3-year-old, she was at a point where, she knew something had changed, and she and I would cook together, and she liked cooking. She liked, putting the noodles in the pan and, spreading the cheese and the sauce. Like, she really liked being a part of that. But she also started to really have a sense of what we were doing. She knew we weren't just making meals for us. She knew, she would say, Mama, today, can we make lasagna pasta? She would call it. We make lasagna pasta for niños who are sad. So she knew that there were people out there who needed this kindness or who needed food. And I love that became part of her language. And she, I remember this early on, this one delivery, and it was to a mom who, her youngest he was severely immunocompromised. He had had a heart transplant when he was 6 days old. And she was scared to leave the house to go grocery shopping because no one knew, what does COVID mean for somebody who's immunocompromised and that little. And she reached out to me and said, not only would a meal be helpful, but it's his birthday coming up and I want to give him something special. So I just think a lasagna would be wonderful. And I told my daughter about this, and she didn't just want to deliver lasagna pasta. When she heard it was his birthday, she wanted to make him a card and to make him cookies, to give him something to celebrate. And it made me so, I don't know if proud is the right word, but it filled my heart to know that she was thinking about it in this way, that she was thinking about, what if it were me and my birthday? What would I want? What would make me happy? And how can we make this little boy's birthday that much more special? And I just remember dropping off, the lasagnas to her along with the cookies and the card as a surprise. And her text afterward, just saying like how excited and surprised he was and how grateful she was. And none of us do this for the thank you, but we do it for the knowing of the feeling that we're giving to somebody, that like we're providing them that spark, that happiness, that surprise, that joy. And I think we've all of us, not just me, but all of the lasagna chefs and the volunteers have all had, an experience like this. And it's what keeps us going when we don't hear from a recipient. We know, because we've seen it before, we know what joy that can bring. But yeah, to circle back, I think, having her have that experience in that language as part of her childhood, it'll just become a part of her, I think, the way that it became a part of me.
That is so beautiful. And, tearing up because it gives you the chills to think of just how many people are being impacted, and not just on the side of the recipient, but the giver as well. For your little girl to say, I want to make a birthday card and cookies, and she wanted to make it so special for him, and starting them off young to realize how beautiful it is to give of yourself and to give from your heart. So not only, as you said, you started in San Diego, did you go statewide, and then you went to another state, and then here you are 2 years later. How many people are you serving across the country, basically, right?
So all over the US, Australia, Canada. I mean, at this point, I think we're in more places than I even know about, but it's funny because I remember still when, it was me and 10 people in San Diego. And I remember when we were like, oh my gosh, like we've made 100 lasagnas. We've like fed 100 families. That's amazing. And we were so excited and so proud. And I never imagined that we would be at the kind of scale we're at today, where just in July, we fed 1 million people. And that I can't even say that out loud without just being so, so grateful to all of the volunteers who are a part of this, who felt inspired, who felt motivated, who, cook either once a week or once a month, whatever it is, but they just felt the need to do something in their community. And I don't even have any words for the gratitude that I feel that we can feed that many people just with this like teeny tiny little idea of like one mom in her kitchen who was, feeling all the feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And, COVID was just such a hard time for everybody involved. And we were all looking for comfort in any way we could. So the people that were receiving and the people that were giving equally getting that dose of medicine, because it is that helper's high that we always think of. So let's get down to the nitty gritty of how we can get more people involved. Because here's the thing, thankfully pulling out of COVID, which we hope we never see something like that again, but there are always needs. There are always the times when people are going through hardships, when people are just down. It's not necessarily even financial, it's emotional, it's physical. There's just so much where people just need a little bit of a boost. And then you have on the flip side, other people that are just like chomping at the bit to do something to be able to give, because for them, that is just as big of a receiving, because they feel needed and they feel like they have something to offer, which is also a beautiful thing. So how do we become involved?
So if you like to cook, or even if you're like, I could probably try making a lasagna, I guarantee you it's the love that you put into it that people taste. So if you can go to our website, you can find us at lasagnalove.org and sign up to be a volunteer chef if you like to cook. And we intentionally make it super easy. So we want to make sure that it works for your schedule or your budget, so people can cook once a week or once a month. You can feed one family at a time or 20 at a time. And it's a really wonderful way to give back. I mean, especially during the holiday season, but the rest of the year, people need kindness just as much. And then if you are like the kitchen is like not your thing, but you love this idea of a kindness movement, tell us what you like to do. We're a really unique organization in that we're almost entirely volunteer led. So, we have volunteers who do outreach and data and all sorts of things. So they donate their skill set instead of their cooking skills. But on the flip side, I think it's just as important to talk about, there's so much going on in the world right now. And I think there are a lot of people who could use the kindness of a home cooked meal delivered, who may be hesitant to raise their hands because they don't consider themselves in need the way we've traditionally thought about that. And I would say, I would challenge, one of our goals is to really break down this stigma of what need means. And everybody needs a culinary hug sometime in their life. So if you're hearing this and are like, oh man, I would love a home cooked meal for whatever reason, doesn't have to be financial. It could be something else going on in your life. Please don't hesitate. Lasagnalove.org to go and request a meal. And if you want to see really beautiful pictures of lasagnas and amazing stories from our volunteers who are doing fantastic things all over the country, find us on Instagram or Facebook at We Are Lasagna Love.
I love how you said a lasagna hug, because it's so perfect. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, it's so much more than lasagna, obviously. And as you said, it's made with love. So even if you're not a cook per se, just give it a try, because it's the act of kindness that means so much. And it really is a movement. So I think it's so important for people to hear just how one person and your thoughts of, hey, I want to help out, can really, spread kindness just exponentially. And here we are, 1 million people who have been able to be treated to lasagna hugs. And we're going to hope that keeps growing. Let me ask you this. When you talked about, I think it's a great point to make, some people don't feel like they can raise their hand. They're embarrassed to raise their hand. I'm in need. I am asking for something. What is an example of somebody outside of the box that you can think of, maybe to just let our viewers know about people that can benefit from lasagna? And it doesn't have to be where we always think of people in need, because I love how you also said breaking that stigma.
Well, I can think of quite a few, but the one I haven't actually talked about yet, just because I haven't had the opportunity, is I actually was a lasagna recipient just a couple months ago. So we flew back. We were visiting my parents. We flew back to where we live now in Hawaii, and my 1-year-old on the plane got COVID. He gave it to the entire family. Separate from that, my husband ended up with an infection, and won't go into the details there. But I was solo parenting 3 kids with COVID myself. They all had, and I was just exhausted. And it's like, I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is the time. Like, this is when we tell people to ask for help. Why does it feel so uncomfortable for me to do it? I'm the founder of Lasagna Love. Like, I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I'm having trouble asking for help. And I think that's, it's so ingrained in us to say, like, no, I can do it by myself. I've got this. I'm like, I don't need anything. But I did, and I could have called the local leader and said, do you have an extra? But I didn't. I went to the website and I put in a request and I waited to get matched. And it was one of the most eye-opening and rewarding experiences to have somebody deliver lasagna to my door and to just be like, oh my gosh, like this, I don't have to cook for a night. This is such a relief, and the kindness of that person. And so I would say, we have people who request because they're, I remember, a woman who, she's taking care of a family member who's sick. We have teachers who have requested because they went back to school and were just feeling totally overwhelmed and needed a break. We have people who are, have kids who are going through some kind of an illness. We have parents who are just it doesn't matter what the reason is. The only thing that matters is that you feel that need to raise your hand. If you feel like this would be helpful for you, that's the only qualifier. That's all we want, is we're here to spread that kindness to whoever it is. So whatever you're walking through, if you need that kindness in your life, more than a meal, right? Like, yes, it's a dinner, but you're requesting kindness from a stranger. And if you need that kindness, we're all here for you.
Wow. Like, I didn't expect the waterworks to be going, but when you shared that story, because it's so personal and you made yourself so vulnerable sharing that story, because it just goes to show how, I think especially, and I remember interviewing, especially coming out of the military, and there's this misconception, when soldiers are coming back and trying to get back into regular life, and how it's considered a sign of weakness for a lot of people when they ask for help. And it's just the opposite. It's a sign of strength to be able to say, what? I need help. I need somebody to give me a helping hand. I need a lasagna. And it's so inspiring.
You can always, we didn't have a chance to talk about this, but almost every single one of our recipients tells us that they either want to pay it forward or have already paid it forward, right? So it's not like, I think there's this feeling, and there's a lot of research that's been done on this, but like the feeling of having a generous act done for you inspires you to then want to do that for somebody else. So, we've done a survey, and 97% of our recipients go on to commit acts of kindness, whether it's, I'm trying to think from the last couple of weeks, we had, a woman who told us, her husband had passed away last month and she donated all of his medical equipment to a local hospital. We had somebody who made a casserole for her sister because she heard her sister was having, a really rough week. We have people who have said, well, the lasagna was too much food for me, so I brought extra to an elderly neighbor down the street who might not get a home cooked meal that often. So there's a whole spectrum of things that are recipients. You think, oh, well, you receive, you need the help, so like you can't do anything right now. No, everybody turns around and does something for somebody else in their community. So this is this incredible ripple effect. So if you're hesitating, to raise your hand to ask for kindness, know that, yeah, you can receive that meal, but then, when it's right for you, go and pay it forward. If that's what makes it feel okay for you to ask for the help when you need it. It's just one big network effect.
Want more MDM content? For more fun and exciting interviews, visit MichelleDawnMooney.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.